Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where the orchard of wisdom shows are at your fingertips. It ignites your soul, your heart, your spirit, your mind, and your body with illumination from people who have made the journey before you. They're here now to help you on your journey, on your path of self-discovery. We are funded by you, the audience, and the people we interview. If you wish to support us, please go to selfdiscoverymedia.com and press on our Fund Action button. Anything is appreciated. We'd like you to sit back and enjoy the shows. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Raising Our Gifted Children right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest, oh my God, have we got some nuggets for you today, is Mark Williamson. And he came about his wonderful journey of his whole redirection in life through his son choking. And his 2-year-old was choking, looking at him and pleading, "Daddy, help me." And he realized he didn't know what to do. And this changed absolutely everything. So now he is our child's keeper. He is, there's no greater time for a leader than a mother or a father. There is no leadership more important than parenthood. Amen to that. It is the very foundation of our civilization. Good parenting makes good adults. So how did it, we know how it came about, but what did he do? What did he go and search to understand how we can be there for our children? We are expected to know it all, folks. The moment the baby is born, all of a sudden there's meant to be a download and we have all the answers. It is not so. We can share wisdom back and forth with other mums, but as a pre-conversation pointed out, it may not always be correct. He has this wonderful book, Top 10 Life-Saving Skills Every Parent Should Know, Emergency. This book will save your child's life. And also he has this wonderful program of baby child safety masterclasses and everything else. So everything you need to know raising a child. Grandparents, I'm a grandparent too, we need to know some things. Just because we did it that way back when doesn't mean it's the way we're meant to do it now. And he says, I believe our children are silently begging us as parents to lead them, to be their source of protection and safety and to hold them up. They're right and they deserve it. Our primary responsibility is to protect and keep our children safe. It's the number one thing. The other thing I will add to this is we are the custodians of our children. We don't own them, but we are responsible in taking care of them, guiding them properly, and allowing them to grow to be whatever they're meant to be. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Honored to be here.
Seeing your child choking, I've been there. It's horrific, and you freeze in the moment. You feel like you're freezing for hours as this slow motion thing is happening in front of you, and it's the panic of what do I do? And then you think Heinemann, but then you can't Heinemann a child, and then you think fingers down the throat, and are you causing it any more difficult? Slap on the back, and all of these things go through your mind, but you panic because you're really not quite sure which is the safe action to take.
Absolutely. And I think, that's one of the things, whenever you see these YouTube videos, you'll see YouTube videos of whether it's a mother in a mall or a father I've seen them at an arcade and reading popcorn, these kind of videos, you'll see how they'll, just like you said, they'll start going through their minds. What should I do? They'll start slapping the kids. They'll start trying to do some sort of Heimlich maneuver, but it's so nuanced, what you're actually supposed to do. And one of the things I tell parents is we only really panic when we don't have the skills to solve the problem, right? So it's a matter of really learning those life-saving skills, I think, is so important. And then actually being able to remember them is yet another part of this that people don't really think through very much. They'll just watch a YouTube video and think, okay, well, now I know this.
Right.
Done. I watched that video, cool. And then, within 48 hours, the average person will forget up to about 80% of what they just learned. So it's like scoring an A on a Monday on a test and then, failing that same test on a Wednesday.
Right, exactly. Yeah. There's also little things that you can do, is even bullet points of things that you've learned. The do's, the don'ts, write it down, put it in your bag, put it in your wallet, put it somewhere where hang on, I've got this here, quickly scan through it. You're not going to remember the whole thing, but kind of some highlighting do's and don'ts having it there instantly to jog the memory.
Yes. I mean, basically anything that's going to help you. I mean, everybody, we're all, we all learn differently. Some of us are, the majority of us are visual learners. Some of us are auditory learners. I think it's like 35% are auditory. So yeah, I mean, whatever's really going to help you. I think the key is even if you're an auditory learner, you still need to understand the commands, right? So for instance, if you're going to, if there's, God forbid, an actual emergency, and you need to call 911. I mean, the dispatchers, it's an entirely auditory system. Mm-hmm. So whatever they're telling you, you still need to be able to internalize it and then visualize it, the way you visualize it best to perform the actual action. So yeah, to your point is really make sure you understand, like, how do you learn the best? How do you retain the best? And then, like we say with our master classes, is really refresh it, go through and refresh every month at least, learn the skills and then refresh as often as possible.
Quiz each other, spouse, aunts, uncles, grandparents, if there's older kids, right? Hey guys, what do we do when? And somebody will come up with it, and it's a good way of making a game out of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes for your babysitters too. Yes. Your babysitters and caregivers, and we've had an au pair for the last 5 years, nanny au pair, kind of the same thing. They live with us. And one of the reasons I chose them was because they were from an international agency that actually taught these skills before they came. But what I quickly found out is I tested her. I said, what are you going to do right here if this happens? She forgot, right. And it's not her fault. I did not be like, I can't believe this. It's like, absolutely you forgot. And if you remembered after 48 hours, then you're one of the, 10% or 15% of people who can retain information that long. So absolutely.
I think it's also a huge, big thing, enormous thing. And when anything happens, take the deep breath, don't panic. Right? The panic is going to freeze the mind. It's going to freeze anything that you ever thought you knew. And you just become frozen and you don't know what to do, or you become hysterical and you're useless. So take that and get in there, because intuitively that will open up the mind to remember what we need to know. But if we're in the panic state, it blocks anything. Absolutely.
I mean, that's why the 911 dispatcher, the first thing she says is, stay as calm as possible. Yes. And your first product, well, how can I do that when, this is happening? But you're absolutely right. I mean, if you don't have that basic thing, then everything's stacked against you at that point. But again, I mean, that level of panic is going to go up and down based on how much you've actually reviewed this stuff, and how much you actually retain. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it really doesn't matter how old your children are. I have a 10-month-old grandson, and he's learning to walk. So of course, he's the crawling, discovering things, even though there's the sockets on the wall, it's everything trying to get into everything. You think you're baby proofed, until the baby gets out there and shows you're not. You forgot about this, or you didn't take that into consideration. And basically, you've just got to watch them, right? Because they are constantly in stuff. But, it doesn't matter what the age is. People think, they get to teenagers, you don't need to worry about that anymore. Again, because the teenagers are now getting, it's the terrible twos in the teens. Right. And they're getting into everything. And I got a phone call, somebody telling me that they've arrested my son for murder, and I immediately, of course, went into panic. It was my son mimicking, just pulling a prank on me. And then about a week later, I get another phone call, a deep voice telling me that my son's broken his leg and he's in hospital. And I go, right, Tyler, you're not going to get me again. You're not going to get me again. Excuse me, ma'am. Yes. And it's like, I mentioned, are you serious? And he was in hospital with a snapped femur. And and it is, what do you do now? And I think, don't expect to know it all in the moment, right? You want, it's okay for you to ask questions. That is essential, because they've got the medical degree, you don't.
Right.
And I remember an orderly, they're having to move my son, and they told me to leave the room. They didn't need an hysterical mother. And I said, there's a very big difference between hysterical and concerned. Right. Do you know which leg it is? Yeah. And they literally pushed me out the door, and they picked him up. They picked him up by the wrong leg, the broken leg, right? Oh my goodness. And it's like, you'll get those people, but it's it's okay for you to ask questions. It's okay even for you to insist, because otherwise you can go under the radar, but always calmly. Calmly is the thing. And I think in parenting, although it's very hard to be calm sometimes.
Yes, yes.
Calmness is what we want out of a parent or grandparent or babysitter or anybody, isn't it?
Yes, and I was speaking to a doctor, last week about this very point, and he was, and one of the videos that he did that I really liked was about how to remain calm and how not to yell. It was directed towards the children themselves, and typically they would have any number of things, but his was actually a form of meditation.
Yeah.
A form of really taking these really deep breaths, and he would show you how to do these breaths. So you would avoid that process of, or going through that with your kids of yelling at them for something, if you're stressed out, it's easy to do. But also, as you said, Sarah, like you need to be your child's advocate,
Yeah.
and when somebody's kind of coming back at you about that, they're coming back to the thing that you care about the most. So that's kind of like a perfect storm. So,
yes.
But, the thing that was so great about this video too, is he said, even before you come home, let's say in that scenario, or before you go to that doctor's office, preventatively do those breathing exercises. So you're coming into the situation calm, right? And so, one of the things, that I really highlight for parents is about this is, and you mentioned it earlier, is always watch your kids when they're eating specifically. It's one thing to watch them, doing other things, but specifically when they're eating. And when it happened to my son, Markus, it was just, I got lucky that I was sitting across from him. Usually I'm just like everybody else, I've got 4 kids, multitasking and doing any number of things, but I just happened to be sitting across from him. My youngest daughter, she was sleeping, and it was just the 2 of us. And because choking is a silent event.
Yes.
You're not going to hear it.
No.
And so, yeah, I think that's so key. And one other thing I want to touch on, because you said it and I loved it, was, a lot of times we try to do these preventative measures from a baby safety proofing, like a home proofing type of thing. And what we don't really kind of think about is we can put those little plugs in, and we can do any number of these little things, child locks, all this stuff. But I say, be your child's detective. And get down to their level, and see what they're seeing. So yes, get down on the ground. I have a video about that, where just go down and start scanning and seeing what you see. And that comes back to when my oldest son, he was probably he was crawling, so he probably was under 1 at the time. I come home from work, and he, starts crawling towards me to say hi. And I go down to his level on my knees. And when he smiles, I notice that I saw something shiny in his mouth. And so I was like, what in the world, And I was able to just calmly approach him, and then just like open his mouth very, very slowly. It was actually a screw. So the people who came over to put together our couch left some screws under our couch. He put his hand in, and of course grabbed it and tried to swallow it. So, or didn't try to swallow it yet. But that's the other point too, is if you calmly approach your child, then you don't run the risk of startling them.
Right.
If I had gone like this, he would have went like this.
He would have swallowed. Yeah, exactly.
Disaster.
It also comes to when a child does have a fall or anything else, don't panic. I had a daughter that was jumping up and down, and I said, don't do that, get down, you're going to fall, and jump, fall, right? Yeah. And she cut her ear open. And I took her off to the doctor, and she's laying there, and her eyes are just beady on me, and I'm just talking softly and talking to the doctor. And she's not taking her eyes off me, and he's busy stitching up the ear. And he said, thank you. And I what for? And he said, most parents are hysterical and crying. It gets the kid worked up. Yeah. Right. Then it's impossible to do anything with the kid because they're hysterical and crying. Right. And he said, you were just calm, and she never took her eyes off you. And because you were calm, she was calm. That's right. Now, that doesn't mean later I'm not going to go home and grab a scotch and shake. But in the moment, we have to step out of our own fear or concern, and we are there for the child. And what does the child need at that time? Right. Reassurance. Right. And that reassurance comes across as calmness.
That's right. Yeah. When we panic, they panic.
Yes.
They're going to mirror us every time.
Absolutely.
For sure.
I had a lovely gentleman on, Armand Bolt, aka Mr. Dad. He does an entire thing on parenting fathers and how to be parents, right from being expectant right up, and always a delight having him. You should really connect with him, because I think it would be fantastic unison there.
Sure.
But we were talking about the do's and don'ts for a kid, and my grandson's at that stage of pulling things, like his father's got a beard, and dad goes out and he goes, hey, this is fun, right? And going to the plug and trying to pull it, and they're going, no, and I changed tone, no, no, and look at me, and it's like, and yes, if the tone is the same for everything, he's not learning.
Right.
Have a tone for no, don't do that. And they'll get to know that tone. Right. And sometimes the best safety can be is showing them where the boundaries are.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, one of the things that we do with our family is, one of the chapters I have is on fire safety. And it's also on fire safety and escape plans. So, taking your child, like when an alarm goes off, what do you do?
Yeah.
If there is a fire, where do you go? And there's a story that's so sad, but it's demonstrative of this point. I think it's worth telling is, in this fire escape plan is really your family needs to determine what is going to be the designated meeting place.
Right.
Where is everybody going to meet? And, before I met my CPR instructor, just after this happened with Markus, a few years ago, he told me the story specifically about that point where he had a childhood friend and they had a home fire. And so his mother, father, his childhood friend, and his sister. So they had this massive home fire. They go out into the front yard. And so who shows up in the front yard is the mother, the father, and his friend, the son. And the daughter wasn't there. So naturally what happened is the father runs back into the house, but he passes away. Now, the daughter went out the back door.
Right.
So she was safe, but she was in back.
Right.
So had they had that designated meeting place and they knew that's where they should go, then it's very, very likely that he would be alive to this day. And so I think to that earlier point is making sure you run these drills with them to the degree to which they comprehend it. And whatever you can teach them, do. And for instance, like we have our house has Alexa devices all over, voice activated Alexa devices all over the place. And so we can broadcast, we can literally say Alexa broadcast, and then we can say fire, get out of the house, out of here or out of there. Right. So you can be very, very specific. And it's so important, because the bottom line is you don't know where any one person is going to be when there is a crisis. Well,
we had a fire. So, but my kids were a little older. They were in the double digits and teens. And it was actually really, really funny. We had been renovating and we just had double glazing put in our bedroom. And I'm always a person, when I wake up, I immediately assess the sound. Before I go react to it, what is it? Then I can deduce what to do. I woke up, got up immediately, went to the window, and I was asleep with the window open. And just as I did that, the flames came up. And I managed to shut the window before they came in, which they would have caught fire to the curtains, and the bed was just a foot away, and it would have been inside. I screened fire. We have one kid upstairs, two kids downstairs. My husband at the time goes downstairs to get the kids out. And then I go out the front with my youngest, and then we come around the back to where the main fire is. My daughter, both of her walls downstairs were aflame, and she got up, went out, thought it was a dream, and went back to bed.
Oh my goodness.
And so it's like, where is she? Where is she?
Right.
And so my ex went in and pulled her out, and she was disoriented, but my son ran back in to rescue the hamsters. Right?
Yeah.
And in fact, we had just seen the movie Backdraft.
Oh, really? Okay.
And there was, I thought the flames were underneath this extension we had done, and I wanted to open up this hatch, to kind of let the flames out. My son hosed me to make sure I didn't do it,
Right.
because he remembered the movie.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, we didn't have the meat at the front or the back or anything like this, but I thought he's got the older ones, I've got the younger one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And but we didn't know that she thought it was a dream, because she was already kind of getting that carbon dioxide, whatever you get from the fire there. And yeah, it was quite horrific. I don't recommend anybody go through a fire or a flooding, but it is neither one of them are fun at all. But the thing about a fire is that it's so instant. Yes. And that it can consume so fast. So having that designated checklist to, it's very, very important, because a teenager, I want to go back in and get my, favorite toy or my game soul or my this and that. And it's to let them know things can be left alone. Life is more important. And that's something to instill in them too.
Yeah. And I think along those lines too, I think the tools that, I really discuss is because, when I was living out back east, we had typical 2-story home, just like it sounds like you have. And, what was terrifying is that we had, everyone was basically sleeping on the top floor. Mm-hmm. And when I started to really run through these scenarios and do the research, then I ended up getting these fire escape ladders. I got a baby rescue bag, which was developed by firefighters, that you can literally take a baby, put them in this bag that's fireproof, and you can lower them down 2 or more stories. And the same thing goes for the fire escape ladders, that those things, will just latch right onto the windowsill, and then you can get out. Is it ideal? No. Are they still, treacherous? Could there be a lot of problems? Yes. But I mean, it's your best shot.
Sometimes it's the only lifeline, especially if you're in an apartment building.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes,
because I'm in an apartment building, we have fire escapes. None.
Right.
None, right? You would have to go down the stairs in the case of a fire. And where do a lot of fires go to? Fire stairs, right?
Yes,
so, if you are living in a situation like an apartment or in high rise or anything like that, it is assess. If we have to get out of here quickly, how do we do it?
Right.
And as you said, I think what a lot of fear from people is, well, if we do this drill with our kids, we're going to cause fear in them. They're going to be afraid. Yeah. And it's like knowledge takes away the fear, because it gives you the power to know what to do in the time of a crisis.
Right.
So you're not making them afraid, unless that you come at them with fear.
Right.
Then yes, they're going to be like that. But if you come at them in case, if this ever happens, this is what you do. Yeah. And then it becomes something, okay, I know what to do. And kids are so resilient.
Oh, yes. When I was doing this with my 2 youngest, they were scared the first time. So it does pass. I mean, because their brains are going to start going through the scenario.
Yes.
You have to explain what the smoke does, what the detectors do. So you're really highlighting what can go wrong. And so they will have that process where they go through their, that process. But then again, they'll be over. I mean, they're just going to go through it. They might have a nightmare like my daughter Lana had. She was 4. So about the fire. So because that was in her head. But then I just explained, I said, you don't have anything to worry about if we follow this procedure, like we've got you, we've got this thing going, and so then you give them that confidence that, we're taking these precautions. And that's why we have these detectors all over the place. And whether it's a carbon monoxide detector, we have explosive gas detectors. Now, why is that important? A lot of people haven't even heard of those. And there is one that we highlight in the book. Anybody can get it on Amazon, but basically what the importance of it is, and this happened to me with my nanny, with my au pair, which really caught my attention because I had come home from work and she was taking the kids to the park. I sit down to watch TV, which is right outside where the kitchen is. And I start getting a headache. Like I just started getting a headache and I was just like, I felt fine before. And I didn't really smell anything. Something just felt a little off, and, but then the headache started to get a little bit worse. And then when she came home, she opens the door and then I got used to it.
Right.
She smelled it she smelled like the gas smell immediately. And then I think she remembered that she forgot to turn the stove off. Now the gas range, but when you actually look at the gas range, the fire was not coming out.
Right.
But it was just enough to where the gas is coming out, but not the fire.
Yes.
So that could have been a major disaster. And these explosive gas detectors, they will detect not only carbon monoxide, but also propane, methane. So had I had that installed at the time, I would have gotten that alert. And what do you think I did? I got one, and now it's right by the stove.
Right.
But it's like really thinking these things through,
Yes. And again, you didn't know. Now you know, you share the knowledge, right?
Yes,
that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Now, I've lost a couple of children in the mall, all right, and which is also a huge scare. You're going to be too young to remember this, but back in the 80s, there was a movie called Adam about a young boy that went missing.
I'm not as young as you think. I do remember that movie. Yes.
Well, my daughter was born right after that. So, or she was born just before that. I can't remember, but I was pregnant with my second child, somewhere around there, but enough to be on the alert. And the first time I am very pregnant, and we went shopping with my husband to get clothes, and I was picking clothes out for him, and my youngest, who was nearly 21 months at the time, was in the changing room with him. And I come back and he comes out and I said, "Where is she?" "No, she's with you." "No, she was with you." And because he was a psychology major, I immediately think of Adam.
Of course.
I go out and grab a security guard and immediately put everything on alert. And he stopped and goes, "We passed the Christmas tree on the way in." And he went in, and sure enough, there she was. But another time, my son got distracted and then followed the wrong stroller, because I had his younger sister in the stroller. But what I always told them was this: don't talk to a stranger. Go into a store. In the store, you tell them you're lost. They phone security. I go to security. Security now knows where they are. Right? In the store, you've got the shopkeepers who will mind them. And bring the right thing. And it was always to my kids, you don't stop and ask anybody, "Where's my mummy?" or anything like that. You go into a store. So when it happened again, they were a bit older. They went into the store. And the connection was made, and it was like, oh my God, they listened. They retained it, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that was probably anchored in that experience too. It's like that must have been so scary, so they probably, once they had that directive, it was anchored, it was ready. They were ready for that at that point. But and a lot of times the kids will actually hide just the clothes racks. They'll go right in the center of it and be twirling it around or whatever it is. So to your point with the psychology major, it's like, okay, where would they probably go? While putting everybody else on alert.
Right.
Yes. And then actually, it's funny you say that too, is one of the things that was really interesting is we did this whole series with a swimming series. So basically, you should start learning how to swim as early as 6 months old, start that whole process. And the woman who I connected with, and we did some videos with her and her daughter, Therese, she was saying, a lot of times if you're in your home and for some reason you can't immediately find them, like they've gone somewhere, or let's say they went down for a nap, they woke up earlier and snuck out somehow. A lot of times parents will start looking under beds. Or looking in closets. And she says that's not the thing to do. She says check water sources first. Because if you think about it, a child under 30 pounds can drown in 30 seconds or less. Right. So they've had drownings in just literally dog bowls, water bowls and stuff like that. So, and their heads are they're top heavy with their heads. They could dip right into a toilet. I mean, you name it. So she says check water sources first. Then do the parameter. And of course, and just like you said with the security, whoever is in the house, mobilize them. I mean, if you have other siblings, and then even if you have an Alexa, you can say, the name of your child is, let's go look for it real quick. Check the front door. I'll check water sources. You start mobilizing a team. And so having those basic things set up in your house, I mean, the Alexa Echo shows now are, $40 or 30. I mean, you can really have an amazing system for under $100 in your house.
Yeah, my son-in-law is busy setting everything up as to be automatic, the lights, the doors, the this, the that, and it could be Alexa, lock the front door, make sure they're not going out,
Yeah.
because let's face it, they're inquisitive little creatures,
Yes.
and it's like, I can reach the door now,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's like, what's outside, or I want to go to
Yeah.
the park again, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter, it's 6 blocks away and over several streets,
Right. Right.
they don't register that, they just remember fun. And
Right.
I want that
Adventure.
fun again. So, the thing is, I think also remember, where were you recently that they enjoyed?
Right. Right.
Because you generally find them back there.
Right. Right. Even a neighbor's pool.
Yes.
There's this video that when I was doing my research, and it was a father who had left a message for his swimming instructor. So it's one of these things, just like when you watch Backdraft and then this happened, it was very synchronous, like it's very synchronous. So this guy started to take his son to a swim class, and in that swim class, he was taught how to roll on his back. If he was ever having a problem, just roll on your back,
Right.
and just stay there, and then you won't be drowning. Like, you
Right.
just go on your back. And so that little technique that
Yes.
they learned in school, what ended up, or in that swim school, what ended up happening is this father left this message where he was thanking the swim school for just that technique. And then he started to cry, because what had happened is they didn't have a pool, right? So a lot of parents are like, oh, I don't have a pool, so I don't have to worry about,
Right.
learning how to think about your neighbor's pools are extremely attractive.
Mm-hmm.
So their son actually went to their neighbor's pool and then got stuck, basically. And he didn't know how to swim other than one lesson, but he did remember turning on his back.
Mm.
So to your point, where would he go?
Right.
Right. And so that's where they went. And then if he didn't have that technique, he would have drowned for sure.
Yeah.
And so, and
But
to
there's
yeah.
an instinctual survival thing in a child.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
they've got a knowledge along with that survival, the two kick in.
Right.
Right. And,
right.
It's lie on my back. They don't remember why. It's just
Right,
lie on my
right.
back. And the
Yeah.
instincts are there, lie on my back. And then I'm on my back. Oh, I'm floating,
Right.
and it again, we underestimate our kids on how smart they are, because they really are extremely clever. But what they haven't yet deduced is what is dangerous, what isn't, what is good, what is bad, and all of that. That is something we teach them. Right. So it is very, very important. I started a sex education program in a not a preschool, but a play group before preschool.
Okay.
And I got an awful lot of flack from the mothers to our children. And then she came in, she taught about the body parts. These are yours. Nobody else can touch them without your permission, and all of that. And then it ended up they were having her every year. And being grateful for the child, because the children afterwards, no, you can't touch. And it's like they're respecting their body. And it's sad that we have to teach them these things, but we do. And don't underestimate of how much they can take in.
Oh, yes.
Right. It's in your delivery, simplify, make it a play type thing. And when you make it a game type thing, they're going to remember it more. But there are certain dangers we have to teach them about.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just like language. It's like, I remember one of my mentors said, how many kids how many languages do you think a child can learn? And he said, as many as you'll teach them.
Yes.
Right. So they are little recording devices until they're, about 7 or 8 years old. They're just recording everything, know, and their ability to, I mean, you know this. I mean, you've had times when you've probably said something you shouldn't, and then they'll pop it off like 2 weeks later. It's like, whoa, where'd they come from? And you knew it was you, right? So they're listening.
They are absorbing everything, and they know when to bring it back out at you.
Yeah.
There's another case in point. It is extremely dangerous to fight in front of your kids, but at the same time, I think it's healthy for the kids to know, Mommy and Daddy are having a disagreement. Right? Doesn't mean we don't love each other. We're just having a disagreement, and this is how we work a disagreement out. Because if they think everything is all holier than thou all the time, and then they have a disagreement with their siblings or friends, they don't know how to navigate it. But as adults, we've got to remember there's little eyes on us. Right? And our disagreement has to be civil, because that's what they're going to be learning.
Right. And I think this goes back to also Dr. Jordan Peterson, is very, very popular. Is a very popular author. And he was talking about just making sure that even for your kids, just playing with other kids in the playground, playing with other kids at the park, and they really need to know how to navigate those situations.
Yes.
And they said, if they don't know how to navigate that by the time they're 4 years old, they're at a really, really severe disadvantage going forward.
Yeah.
So I was lucky enough, to listen to what he said and hear what he said. I think when Lana was probably about 2 or maybe 1 or 2. And so don't you know, like our trips to the park, like went up exponentially after that.
Yeah.
And now she goes out, and so does my son Marcus. Like they were sort of introverted before. And now they're like the little mayor of the park, right? And so they have a ton of friends.
Yeah.
And it's basically, you really want your child to that other kids are happy to see them and want to play with them. That's gonna send ripples throughout the rest of their life. What happens right now.
Right.
So and that information we're feeding them, to your point, is so multifaceted. Not to hide stuff.
But also the teaching of empathy. I've done numerous shows on narcissism, and narcissism can come about 5, 6, or 7. Now, children, it's all about me, myself, and I. It's their survival. Everything is about them. But the soon as you can teach them to be kind, soft touch, be respectful, have empathy for people. You can't teach them that young enough, as far as I'm concerned, right? And the more you teach them of that, and that, if you're going to get into a fight, it isn't to kill.
Right.
It's a rumble, right? And it's not about you. It's about the us. And the narcissism comes about from a child who's not been taught empathy, that is still striving for approval, striving to be respected or valued, and it's still all about them. And then there's a few poster children out there and adults that are dictators around the world that are really, key narcissists that become psychopaths. And so teaching our children kindness and empathy, and also what to do in a situation when something happens. Like, you may not be around, but the brothers or sisters or the friends of something may happen. And not to be scared, or even if they don't know what to do, that certainly that kindness and caring setting in, letting know that person, they care for them, or calling out for mum and dad. But it's important they know that, isn't it?
Yes, and in fact, it's funny you say that, because I've had mixed reactions to what I'm about to say, but I've encouraged, because we have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. Those are my 2 youngest, and my 6-year-old is like he watches his sister like a hawk, and it's not always with the best intentions, right? So it's sort of like he throws her under the bus immediately for everything she does, but what I love about it, and I encourage him, what I'm thinking is like, right now, throw each other under the bus so we know if there's a problem, right? And then you're going to have each other's back as you get older, right? So we're at some point we're going to transition.
Yes.
But from a safety perspective, like we were talking about before we started, is kids will seek and find danger 100% of the time. And my daughter Lana, I mean, it's a difference with me from the standpoint of a father becoming certified in CPR, to becoming somebody who says, just being certified in CPR is not enough for this girl.
Right.
I need to become a CPR instructor.
Right.
I need to learn like just next level stuff. And that's what I did. So it's like, because it's just extraordinary. You things that you would never think of. And I have a history of 26 years of being an investigator, working on civil, Supreme, and federal court cases. Very, very complex cases, such as like a crane falls in Manhattan and people are killed. We go in there with a team and find out, well, who's liable for what, do the research on a plaintiff. So that's what I took when I was working on my book, is taking this issue, because it's really, the statistics are just heartbreaking. So nearly 1 million children worldwide will not make it to the age of 5. I mean, really think about that. In the U.S., it's about 8,000 or nearly 1 per hour. It's, I mean, and these are this is not, from war, famine, or disease. No. It's from accidental injuries, most of which could have been prevented. And so when I was looking at that statistic and saying, well, why is this? and then really start breaking down what are a set of solutions. And it all comes back really to the parents.
Yes.
And then by extension, the grandparents who, as we have a lot of dual income, families now. And so the grandparents are actually taking care of the kids. So they need to know just as much as the parents do. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have a whole series called the Forgotten Children series, and there's going to be a book coming out, a collaborative book on that. And it's very, very close to my heart about how we raise our children. And I look at every child as a gift, and how we raise our children is who they're going to be as adults. And we really, let's face it, we have a very dysfunctional society out there right now. It's very much about divide and hate and differences when we should be over that by now. And look at inclusivity and unity and coming together. And our children have got it. They play with all colors, all demographics. They don't care. They're just going for the vibe.
Yeah.
Right. And as we grow up, we become this segregated people that start judging people left, right, and center. And it's very detrimental to our mind, body, hearts, and souls, and to our society as a whole. And you see an awful lot of children growing up really, really hurt physically, emotionally, but also one of the big things is neglect.
Yes.
And a neglected child is a child that is just, as you said, there's danger around them all the time. They look for that danger. And a neglected child, when somebody isn't able to watch them because mom and dad have got 2 jobs, or single mom, grandma is tired, she didn't want to sign up for this again, right? And it's if they don't know, it can be very exhausting. And I think more resources have to go into our children in the education, which needs to change, in family support, in family education, as far as, the dangers out there, what they can do. We don't want blame and shame.
Right.
If they didn't know what to do, they didn't do it deliberately. It's just they didn't know what to do, or they didn't know this was a bad move.
Right.
Right. So the more we educate parents right from the beginning and show our support for them, these are the safety measures. Your child needs love, but also needs boundaries and discipline, needs to know the dangers. You need to be aware of the dangers and teach them those dangers along the way and what you can do in situations. The more we empower them to be better parents.
Right. And these little tools too, you'll find that they'll be sharing them with their classmates.
Yes.
Something as simple as, like, when we talk about choking, for instance, with my kids, the diameter of the windpipe is about that of a drinking straw. So think about the size of that. It's like, I did a whole video on this. You just literally look at the drinking straw. And so when you think about the most common choking hazards, being hot dogs, popcorn, cherry tomatoes, grapes.
Yes.
They're circular, they're circular, and they go right. If the windpipe is circular and you put something circular on top of it, what happens? It plugs up.
Yeah. And
so what I love about that is, like, if Lana, my youngest, starts getting into something such as popcorn or something, right? So if a nanny comes by and she's making popcorn and doesn't really pay attention like we've told her to do, Markus will be the one who will point that out. And then when we go to a birthday party, he's like watching this stuff.
Yeah.
He'll come over and say, hey, and he'll give them this little tool. And then the parents will end up coming over to us and being like, where did he learn that? And then we'll have a conversation, but they're taking that information in, and it's there are so many amazing stories of the siblings rescuing their and not
even
not
the parents. Yes.
No, the parents could be right there, and they'll sort of instinctively, I think, to some point will know what to do. But then, at the very least, they can alert you to a problem if you are one of these, like we're talking about, distracted parents. And what I say to parents is, like, if you're looking down at your phone, that means you're not looking up at your kids. Right. So there's a time for everything. Right. So, and I guarantee you, whatever's on your phone most likely is not an emergency. Right.
And what are you teaching your kids if you're perpetually on your phone?
Yeah.
That they're less important.
Right.
The phone is more important. And eventually you go and get them a phone and it becomes the most important thing.
That's right.
Right. And really, quite honestly, with children, play is one of the most important things,
Their
because
number
that's
one
how
job.
they learn. Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
Through play, they learn.
Yeah.
They learn the do's and the don'ts, the limits, the how far they can go and how much they can do. And we need to step up and let them be the children they're meant to be and make their own self-discovery through play.
Right. Right.
Safely.
And I think that goes by that, that goes back to sort of, I mean, I want to kind of stress too, it's like, I want to make sure I'm not putting forward to be a helicopter parent so much, like be paranoid all the time. I really encourage situational awareness. Going into a scenario, really being situationally aware, and then actually watching.
Yes.
Right. I mean, there was a German talk we talked earlier about drowning, which we talked about, how we think of our children being a certain age and we're like, okay, now we're good. Yeah. Right. They're going to be fine. But drowning is one of the leading causes of childhood deaths up to the age of 19.
Yes.
So,
look at birthday parties, one of the real big statistics of a number of children in a pool, and somebody's not paying attention. A kid gets kicked and momently black out, and the next thing where is that kid? At the bottom of the pool. Yeah. This actually happened to one of my dads. My dad was a pastor of a church, and they had a pool party, and it was so sad because they had a full pool. I mean, everybody's full, and there was parents all around the perimeter of the pool, and a child drowned. Right. And so, if you don't have, that's why we encourage a designated water watcher. Yes. Yes. But you have to rotate them. You can't just rely on one person. And then, but you really still need to take it to another level and understand that even if you designate somebody as a water watcher, there are so many videos as well where you literally have a lifeguard up here and somebody's drowning right under him. Right. So they're still your kids, so if you really want to make sure they're okay, have that other set of eyes, or just be helping them out. It could be you parent watch these 3 kids. Right. Keep your eye on these 3 kids. You watch these 3 kids, and instead of somebody having to watch the whole pool, which is damn hard with bobbing up and down, right? All you have to do is keep your eye on those 3 kids. Right. And ask those 3 kids to stay together so that you can keep a good eye on them. Right. Yeah. Situationally aware. Just really identify what can you do to keep the situation as safe as possible. We want them to have fun, but safe fun. Of course. Yes. Yeah. I mean, if you're watching them, they can basically do pretty much whatever they normally do. Right. It's just a matter of making sure that you have eyes on them. Yeah. There's a German study. I meant to bring this up. There was a German study, and they were analyzing the recent amount of deaths that were increasing, and one of their conclusions it was from distracted parents. And I mean, think about that. And literally having that on you as a parent, that you were on your phone and your child drowned, right? So it's just like that's, we talk about our whys, right? So what happened with myself and Markus is, after he choked and I panicked, I didn't know what to do. I got lucky. I mean, luck saved him, not me. Yeah. Right. And so it's actually destiny to redirect you to doing what you're doing now. Yeah. I mean, it really was. I did get lucky, and and my why really is, when you go through that, you're immediately, not only you start crying because you're so grateful. Yes. Then the crying turns into embarrassment and then anger. Yes. Because it's like, at the time, it's like, how can I have 4 kids and not know something so basic? And in doing the research, there's so many, there's some, this podcast go on for 3 hours, but why is this? And it turns out that about 72% of parents aren't even aware of the fact that childhood deaths are in these numbers, and that they're from these unintentional injuries or accidental injuries, preventable injuries. But why is it in 2022 that hospitals aren't handing out the emergency book, the manual book, the things to be aware of in the first 2 years of life? Why are we not where is the focus? We've got focuses on celebrities, on this and that, and wars, and on God knows what other crap going on. But where is the focus on, do not expect just because we've given birth that we know it all. Instinctually, a lot comes into play. But the dangers out there, what to do with them, you expect us to know this? No, there should be something handed out with every new parent.
Well, we happen, Sarah, so happy you said that, because we happen to be going in for our first meeting at a hospital soon. So what I wanted to do, to your point, is, when both of my kids were born on the East Coast, nearly right after my wife gave birth, this woman came in from this company called Bella Baby Photography. And she wanted to take pictures of the baby. Mm-hmm. So the hospital had actually given her permission to come in and then ask parents if they wanted to have pictures of their baby taken. Mm-hmm. Now, we were exhausted. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, no, absolutely not. We're not thinking about photography right now. I said, but come back tomorrow, and I'll, we'll see where we are at that point. So she returns the next day, and we slept, and we're like, absolutely. And she ended up taking the most amazing pictures of the baby. And what I thought about at that point was a couple of things. We are at our highest level of anxiety that we'll ever be in the hospital, because we know that within about 48 hours or 72 hours, we have to actually take this baby home. And even after having 4 kids, I wasn't less freaked out on the 4th kid, right? It doesn't happen. No. So when I thought about the process, like, how can we actually make a difference? That's why, going into hospitals, to me, worldwide, is going to be huge for us, because everything down to, how to safely swaddle your baby. Yes. That in and of itself is something that you can see a nurse do it 1,000 times. And then does it fold, come this way? Wait, do I do this? And if you don't get that right, the increased risk of SIDS is through the roof, right? So, having this education start in the hospital, so they have that confidence when they go home, and have it via video. And so that's how we created our masterclass. Yes. And we're just getting started. We want to really partner with hospitals and have nurses also create sort of frequently asked questions that nurses hear, but also should ask questions, right? What should parents be asking before they come home? And then giving them access to that. So when they go home, they have this like video library, of everything from how to create a safe sleep environment, which is huge. And then of course it follows them. Yeah. There's no age that a parent's not going to want to know how to save their child's life, right? No. So with our masterclass, we don't have an expiration on it. We're just like, you have it, and you have it as long as God willing, you have as long as possible. Give it to them, to give to their own friends.
Yes. Yeah. 1 child, 2 child, 3 child, and then pass it on to brother and sister or having kids. Right. That's the whole thing, is that as long as the knowledge is getting out there, right. The other thing is you see parents shaking their kids. Yeah. And it's like a little too much. Yeah. Calm it down, please. There's a difference between the shaking and shaking syndrome, and it may not be too much. And it's like, if you do any harm to your child, yes, immediately you feel, I'm a bad mother, I'm a bad father, and you spend the time then ridiculing yourself. And instead of like, well, why didn't I know this? Right. And what else do I not know? And how do I get the information?
Right. And I think that brings up another fantastic point, is a lot of times what they'll do, I have a part of my book that says, while everything can be Googled, not everything should be Googled. Right. Right. And the same goes for YouTube, which is owned by Google. Right. So it's obviously fantastic. Google's fantastic. But when it comes specifically to child safety, baby safety, you type in like how to save a baby from choking, like you're going to get like millions of results. Number one. If you go into YouTube, you could get hundreds of videos that say, it could be somebody who just learned the skill and made a YouTube video. You don't know if it's up to date from a certified instructor. Yes. So people are going to YouTube and to Google for some of the wrong reasons. So I think,
good intentions, wrong avenue. Yeah.
Right. And then for instance, a mother will say, well, I learned how to save my baby from choking on YouTube. And I say, okay, let's walk through this process here. Let's walk through it, because they can be stubborn sometimes that they think they learned something. Yeah. Right. And so I said, let me give you a scenario and let's see how we go with this. Let's take your baby who you just learned, for instance, that they're how to save them from choking. And let's just say theoretically, it's up to date. It's by a certified instructor, right? How to save your baby from choking. And so that's the information that you got. And let's say that it's past 48 hours and you just, you're one of the top 10% of people who can remember things past 48 hours, not panic. Okay, so let's just say all those things are in place. I said, what if it doesn't work? She said, what do you mean? I said, what if the object that the baby was choking on went too far down and didn't come out when you were doing the back slaps or the chest? What if it doesn't come out? I said, did you also watch the video about how to perform baby CPR? Now, here's the second part. I said, how you save a baby in choking in CPR and how you save a child in choking in CPR are two entirely different skill sets.
Yes.
So once they hit, and it's identified by the age. So over the age of 1, you're technically considered to be a child. So you also have to make sure that you update that after they turn 1 and you understand the differences between the two. And then remember those differences. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's this, and she, her eyes got big because she saw, that you can't rely on that. There's a lot more to it. It is so nuanced, that it's the difference between life and death.
Exactly. And, we don't want to hear, the biggest fear of a parent is a child going before you. Right.
Yeah.
And, people say, do you play the lottery? And I said, my luck is all on my children, as long as, they're alive, healthy and well and enjoying life. That's my lottery as far as I'm concerned. But, they've certainly put me through it. I'm going to give you a little tip here, which, of course, my son never listens to this. He's going to laugh. All my kids laugh when I mention this. But do you know about the boiled egg treatment?
No, never heard of it.
Okay. Kids fall down, they get bruises. Right. You take a hard-boiled egg, and while it's still hot, take the shell off and apply the hot egg to the area. At first they go, ouch, and then it's soothing. And there's an enzyme in the egg that brings the bruising right out. And it'll take it from first stage right to last stage. And it works every time. So kids are going to get noggins and bruises, and they're going to get it when they're older for different reasons. But this hard-boiled egg works. So you deshell it immediately when it's hot, and you rub the hot egg over the area. When the egg is cold, throw it away, don't eat it. And it works. There's just an enzyme in the egg that draws the bruising right out. And it's because the actual bruise can really, really hurt. People don't think that, tough, it got a bruise. No, bruises hurt as the healing. So if you can take away the pain of that and heal it faster, why not?
Right. That's fantastic.
A mother's tip.
Yeah, well, you know what? I love that you said that, because we have a chapter in our book called really a parent awareness, like awareness as a skill. And I call it the million little things. And what I mean by that is when you look at an event that happens, there's usually a million little things that went wrong for that event to actually happen. And so there are some of these tips, and we would get tips from mothers. We get them from ER nurses. We get them from, like, my good friend is an EMT in New York. And so when you were talking about the lighting of the house, we did a video on that too, because, he was basically, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. My EMT friend, he says, we use, when we go to on an emergency, we actually use, like, you go either Google Maps or, another popular GPS app is Waze, right? WAZE, right? I use Waze all the time. And he says, we actually use those to go find the houses. He says, but the problem is, he says, how many times have you used one of these GPS apps and, like, you haven't actually ended up where you wanted to end up, number one. But number two, he said, what they have to do is when they get onto the street, they have to start scanning to find the numbers on the house.
Yes.
Or on the mailbox.
Yes.
Because so many times the lights to conserve energy are turned off.
Right.
And then on the mailbox, they don't have a full address, the numbers on the mailbox, and they can't see it from the street. So then they're looking at neighbors, and then the neighbors don't have, and so he says it's causing delays. So one of the things we talk about in our babysitter checklist is one of the things that I'd like to give away to anybody listening, is, really tell, basically direct. That's another thing. You are your child's advocate. Be direct.
Yes.
It's like if somebody were, you needed to perform CPR and you're in a public place, you in the plaid shirt, go call 911 and get an AED, right? You have to, because everybody's, when people are around children, they're very emotional.
Yes.
And they will panic.
Right.
So you have to, but if you call someone out specifically, and direct them to do something, they will do it.
Only too happy to do it. Because you've given them an instruction that doesn't make them feel paralyzed watching what they're watching. They feel that they're helping in some way.
You're empowering them. Yes, you're empowering them.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So that's just one of those things that's a huge, just being your child's advocate is so important. So back to the delighting thing is if you have somebody, a caregiver coming over, direct them, say, listen, leave the lights on the house, full house, leave the lights on outside. Because if it's illuminated, and then it's your job as the parent, of course, to make sure that the address is clearly seen, right? And the other thing too about babysitters is that, I don't know about you, but we haven't had a landline in our house, which is basically a phone attached to the wall for years. We all have cell phones.
Yes.
Well, here's the problem, which I think where I'm probably going with this, is that if you were to call 911 from your landline, they know where you are. They know your address, but we usually don't do that, right? We'll call from our cell phones. Our cell phones do not provide them with accurate location data. So if the first question they're going to ask you is, where are you calling from? What location? Now, when you go over to your house, you know how to get to your son or your daughter's house, but do you know their address?
Right.
Now, maybe you do, but does your typical babysitter? Probably not. And so there's if you go to ourchildskeeper.com/911, we have this video, which was amazing. And part of this video was there was a reporter who was having a conversation with a director of a 911 dispatch center, right? And they're having this conversation overlooking all the dispatchers for 911. And he takes his cell phone, and he was making a point about cell phones. He calls 911, it gets routed to that dispatch center, and he says, I'm a reporter for NBC News. He says, can you tell me what address I'm calling from? She gives him an address that's about a quarter mile away.
Right.
And he's standing in the dispatch center. He can see her.
Right.
And because it's basically going off the nearest cell phone tower. So,
and of course, in the movies or the TV shows, they know exactly where you are because Google has given the exact point. But, I know that whenever my address comes up on Google, it's always at least half an hour away, different town altogether, right? Yeah. So that is, this is an emergency, this has happened, this is the address. Blur it out. Get it there first, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so, the point of the checklist also is to have a central document that they can refer to.
Right.
It has your cell phone number, your wife's cell phone number, your partner, whoever it is, and it has all this basic information, but it's nuanced.
Yeah.
It is nuanced. And so when somebody initially sees the checklist, they're like, oh, this is very basic stuff. It's like, yeah, but if you don't know this basic stuff, you're in trouble.
Right. And what happens when you're in a panic? Immediately, I don't know what to do. Well, this is ABCs of what I do.
That's right.
911.
That's right. It's right next to the phone, or it's right on the refrigerator, wherever it is.
This is what's happened. This is the address. Please call the parent.
Right.
This number. Right. Tell me what to do. Right. And immediately you are asking for help, and immediately they now have the information in which they can turn around and help you. So it's the same thing as if something's happening in a mall and you're telling somebody in the plaid shirt.
That's right.
You're saying, this is the information, tell me what to do.
Right. And then also
911 is now know what to do.
100%. And I think the other thing too, that, and again, when you're looking for different solutions, you can have a checklist, but then how can you take that to another level? The another level is have them come over 15 minutes early and then watch the master class that is age specific to how to save your child from choking, how to perform CPR. You can do it in 7 minutes, right? And then have that computer there, then they can watch it and then make sure they understand what it is. So you're taking, and then that's what is it, an extra 15 minutes? Give them an extra $5.
Exactly.
And then they can actually have it on their computer as well. They can actually access it themselves. And so what we're saying, we're not saying don't call 911. We're saying call 911 100% of the time, but we can't rely on it because we have to understand, like, the average response time of 911 here in the US is over 10 minutes.
Right. So
a child, if they're choking, could be unconscious within less than 2 minutes.
Right.
Same thing goes for an adult, right? So that's about how much oxygen we have stored up that we can, but again, that's really depends on what you were just doing. You might have been out of breath and you don't have 2 minutes. So, and again, because 911 is an auditory system, we're right back to the thing of we need to be calm. Great. That's not going to happen most likely. And then we need to understand what we're being told. And I can tell you, if you just go through like how to save a baby from choking, you're talking about, do 5 back slaps in between their shoulder blades, at a 45-degree angle, where their feet are higher than their head are lower than their feet. So you're basically using gravity, right? So, and then you're doing chest compressions, which are 1.5 inches down or a third of the depth of the baby's chest. Like, think about these commands coming at you while you're panicking,
right?
And the
Yes.
baby is drooling and losing consciousness. But if you know these things, and you've really taken the time, to make sure that whoever's taking care of your kids understand what to do, then and when you're on the phone with 911, you're going to have that ability to process that. And that's why I said, even if you know 100% what you're doing, you still call 911. They might say, well, why? I saved them. Okay, well, what do they choke?
Residual, yeah.
Well, the residual, number one, is with the back slaps, that's usually fine because they're so resilient, as you know, children are so resilient that way. But what did they choke on?
Right.
Did it lacerate their esophagus? Did
Yes.
it mean you don't know what damage
Right.
that could have caused? So you still, so that's another tip for you as well, is whatever the object is, keep it. And, if you have to go somewhere to the ER or something like that, as opposed to the EMS arriving before you leave, bring it with you so they
Yes.
know what it is they choked on.
There's another thing that you could do. The babysitter comes over, you put the video on along with the kid, and you take a doll.
Yeah.
All right, let's save your doll.
Yeah.
Right? You're watching the video refresher, the kid's watching the video subliminally going into the mind, and they're putting it in on their doll.
Right.
No, you do it this way, you do it that way. Let's do this. Let's save. Oh, your doll is saved.
Right.
And you've made it a game, but it's planting those wonderful seeds. If you do it a few times, that it's there. It's there in the mind, right? But the other thing is having, immediately there's something happening to the child. What do you do? Don't go to Google. Have this particular immediate thing on your phone. Choking. Click. What do I do? The steps are there. You know what to do immediately. Do you have that ability for people to do that?
Yeah, so we're very, very close to. I can't announce it here, but I love to come back when I can, because I'd say probably about 6 weeks away. But something a little bit even cooler than that.
Ooh.
So we're super excited about that. So again, we're not just saying, okay, here's a book,
right.
Again, because then you're saying the book is really meant to motivate people to take the next step. And the next step is the masterclass, right? Is to actually learn these skills, and they can look at it. They can watch these classes 24/7 from, it's on demand anywhere from, anytime from any device, right? And engage your caregivers to do that as well. But the key thing here, and I'm glad you brought this up, is about, having a doll. And, when we talk about getting certified in CPR, right? The masterclass is really to refresh your skills. We're not saying don't get certified in CPR. Right. We're saying getting certified in CPR is not enough because of our memories. Right. You're going to forget. And usually these, depending on what country you're in, these certifications can last for 2 years. Well, some shouldn't last for a week. Like give somebody a quiz after a week, and I guarantee you 99% of them are going to fail. So for us, it's like, and the reason I bring up the certification is it's so important for parents still to go get certified because of the mannequins that you're doing compressions on. You need to feel, what it's like on an actual, because the mannequins these days that we have for our CPR, videos and stuff, like they have lungs in them.
Right.
And they have like a little meter that can tell you if you're compressing fast enough, or you're going too slow, or it's not deep enough. Right. So if you're not doing it deep enough, if you're just doing these chest compressions and it's just going in like, a half an inch because you think, oh, I don't want to, injure my child, like that's a serious problem. No, you need to get deep. You need to be in 1.5 inches on a baby, down on their breastbone, just above their nipple line. And then that's the way you're going to, because they need that.
Right.
You need to be pumping in this blood, this oxygen to the brain, lungs, and organs. In order to do that, you need to have significant compressions. So the way you're going to feel that is going to be on those mannequins,
which is, then you have that knowledge there. I mean, I know that for parents is to be absolutely petrified of pressing down on the rib cage in case they break the rib cage.
Right.
And then puncture a lung or puncture the heart or puncture anything else with what the rib cage is there to protect. So I know that a lot of people, they're dealing with the moment, but at the same time petrified if they do it wrong, they're going to cause more damage.
Right. Well, that's sort of the myth, about that, because, you can cause damage, for instance, for, performing child skills on a baby. Right. But at the bottom line with CPR is that they are so resilient that the thing that you don't want to do is to have them pass away from not doing enough, and then thinking you're doing too much and injuring something that they can heal from. Right. You can't heal if you pass away. Right. So exactly. The key is but again, that goes right back to sort of the progression for a parent. I highly encourage, get certified in CPR, but understand I'm not going to rely on that. That's great. I'm going to get the feel of it. I'm going to get some knowledge here, probably not going to remember it, and then access something like a masterclass like we have, whether it's from us or anybody else, it's fine. But access classes from a certified instructor, watch them on a regular basis. If you can do it every month at the very least, like I said, you can get it done in like 7 minutes, right? Yeah. It's not asking a lot.
Right.
And then, like the book, really trying to highlight a lot of the things that parents have never heard of before. Like I wasn't interested in writing a book that was about, like just some basic manual on CPR, right? It's important to have some of those things in there, but what are some of the things that parents are not thinking about? That they've never heard of before. They'll be like, holy cow. Like, for instance, like one of the biggest ones is never feed your child while they're in the car seat. Mm-hmm. I did that for all my kids. Right? Mm-hmm. And so you just like, hey, we're going on a car ride. Here's some, but like I said, then you learn, and so and the parents are like, wait, what? You like don't, I was like, no, I said, and if you are going to feed, because I explained choking is a silent event. Right. If what you think of as them sleeping could then be unconscious.
Right.
Right. And a lot of times if you have rear facing seats, then you run the risk of relying on this little mirror, which are terrible, the quality. Mm-hmm. And then again, what are you going to see? You might see them sleeping, right? And it's not that. And then by the time you get to your destination, it's too late. So things like that, I really try to highlight, what are these top things that I hear from ER nurses and from these EMTs, and then really sort of look at a much broader scope. And how they can really, because it really doesn't take that long.
No. And
that's
prevention is always better than cure.
Oh, 100%.
Right. Do you ever cover head injuries? Kids fall over, they black out. And, it's like what to do in that time period. Is it, is it brain swelling where you have to rush to the hospital? Is it, are they going to come round at a certain period of time? I mean, I've certainly been through it enough with my kids, but I know that every kid is going to knock themselves out at some point. Yeah. So do you have any tips in on that?
The number one tip is going to sound like I'm pushing it off to somebody else is when you're dealing with a head injury, literally you call 911, because in that situation, you're not in like if it's a head injury, they're not going to be having you perform all of these things typically, right? They're going to be more of a diagnosis. Okay, here's what you're doing. They'll give you the step-by-step. And of course it's going to be, and the EMS, can arrive, within a pretty short period of time, because what you're going to run the risk of is if you are going to go and say, okay, well, I can get to the ER faster than they're going to get to me. Right. But then you run another risk. Number one, you're driving in a panic state. You're taking them physically, putting them in his car seat, strapping them in. Right. You don't know what happened. You don't you're not qualified to diagnose the situation. Yeah. So it's the way I look at it is 100%. I mean, call 911 and then go from, their directives, especially with a head injury, because you never know what could have happened. I mean, sometimes they don't act like they'll start getting up, but they could have a lot of broken, if they get up in the wrong way, you could puncture, the spinal cord, any number of things. So I would really seriously, the average mother, or father, 100% of the time call, 911 in a situation like that. Yeah. I mean, you never know.
When my daughter was younger, the same one that split her ear, she was jumping up and down on grandma's chair near the TV. And I said, get down, you're going to hit yourself. She hit herself, passed out. My mum calls the local doctor. They can't come out. So I literally pick her up, carry her and take her around there. She's passed out, immediately rush me into the doctor. As soon as I go into the doctor, what's happened? She hit her head. She passed out. Hello. And you look like the complete idiot and neurotic mother, right? And of course, then it is, take the concussion seriously, because
Yeah.
you don't know,
Yeah.
they may appear perfectly all right now, but you don't know later. So, the due diligence of being mindful, yes, they're going to go to sleep, but can they wake easily?
Right.
Are they going into a deep sleep where you can't get them roused because that's significant of something else? And
Yeah.
we don't expect you to know it all.
No.
Right? That's the whole thing. And it's like having the information that you've gathered from the people who've experienced all these things, that have seen these things. And if only the parents had done this,
Right.
or if only the
Right.
caregiver had done that, if only they knew to do this,
Right.
this could be prevented. So you're talking preventativeness.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we're not going to prevent everything,
You
but
do,
what
you
do
do
we do
your
when
best.
it comes up? What do you do?
You do your best. Like we have
Yeah.
a quote in our book, and it's really after the chapter on SID, sudden infant death syndrome, and the suffocations and strangulations. And the doctor basically said, at the end of the day, we can't prevent these things 100% of the time from happening. We can do our best, though.
Yes.
Do your best, become educated. And again, even if you know these things and you know them very, very well, there's still a chance that you can panic. But did you do everything in your power? That's at the end of the day, we just have to do our best.
Yeah.
And really seek out these resources, but don't take them on the face value.
Right.
Really think through, where is this information coming from, and then also, like, something as simple as making sure that somebody knows your address. Like, get nuanced on it. If you're going to get nuanced on anything, don't have it be what's for dinner, right? Like, get nuanced on this stuff. And even with it, like, if the kids have, like, my daughter Alana was born with severe allergies, severe, like, to this day, like, we have a very limited list of things that she can eat. Some of which are the airborne. Some people have airborne allergies. So that's one of the things we put on our babysitter checklist as well. It's like, you have to make sure that the babysitter knows specifically how to prepare food. Prepare your food with your silverware, all the cooking for the child that has the allergies first, obviously, yes. Right? But then if you have 2 kids or 3 kids or 4 kids, and the other kids are fine, like my son Markus, no allergies. All right. So making sure these things are separated out. I mean, it can be something as simple, and this happened to us. It was one of these things. And my wife's a nurse, right? And so she works really, really long hours. And my son and my daughter, like, we had oat milk for my daughter who has allergies because she's not allergic to oat milk. And then regular milk was for my son Markus. Well, she got them switched up. So my daughter ended up, drinking cow's milk. And then I come home and I'm just like, what happened? And you don't immediately see what's happening, right? You don't, with something like that, it's can be slow. So I know what's going on, so I'm not panicked, but I'm obviously very, very concerned. We are about 2 minutes away from our hospital. I know, statistically speaking, I'm going to get her there faster. She doesn't have any other injuries. It's what's happening is going on the inside. So I get her to the ER in 2 minutes. And that brings up another point is, if you have a child with allergies, make sure you have an EpiPen. Yeah. And the thing is, too, here's another step. Make sure you know how to use it. Yes. That may sound obvious.
No. Recently, a boyfriend did it to his girlfriend and put it in the wrong place. Right.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. And make sure you know it. So we even have a video in our masterclass how to use an EpiPen, right? But the EpiPens, but we're very clear to stress that, for instance, like, I'm 46 years old, and when I look at the EpiPen, I can't read the directions on it. Right. They're tiny. Yes, right? I know. Oh. Right. So I'd be using like a mic. I mean, so for me, it's like, okay, I know how to do it. I can what I typically do if I can't see something is I'll take a picture of it and then just highlight like that. Blow it up. Yes. So we have a video on that, but of course, EpiPen is not the only epinephrine auto injector. There's other versions, and they change. I mean, sometimes you'll put it in and it'll say, rub the area for 10 seconds, and then they've changed. Now it could be as low as 3 seconds. So it's like make sure you understand not only that how to use it, but also make sure it's not expired. Yeah. And that's very easy. They're expensive. So a lot of parents might try to, take that. But, it's like, these are kind of things like, check the expiration dates. We have the technology now. Like on my phone, I could just say, I could tell Alexa, and I could say, Alexa, set a reminder for 3 months, to check the expiration date on the auto injector. Right. So use technology as reminders for these things. Same thing goes for the fire detectors, or the smoke alarms. The batteries can last up to 10 years sometimes, but when did you buy the house? How new is the battery? Right. And then, so it's typically with daylight savings time, that's a good time every year to say, okay, I'm just going to switch out these batteries to be on the safe side. Right. So these little tiny tips.
Got another tip for you, but it's not for kids.
Okay.
I have a severe nut allergy.
Okay.
And the EpiPen I kind of gave up on me because I know immediately if I start taking a nut, the bubble of the lips, and I take my antihistamine. But I was with my daughter at a bar, and she'd ordered this salad and she got those walnuts in it. So I'm eating the green things and I go, my lips are bubbling. Mom, I forgot walnuts. And the bartender said, here, rinse this around your lips, gargle with it and swallow it. Straight vodka. And no, seriously,
really?
I have been caught a few times in restaurants where they've given me nuts, even when I've said I'm allergic to nuts. And every time that vodka thing, because it's quicker. I mean, you end up with a kid and there's nothing else. It works. You rinse your mouth, you rinse everything else. There's, again, something natural in the potato of a vodka that works. So it's another tip, but especially, more for an adult, but you never know. But there's always something. And, having a nut allergy, there's a lot of places that don't take allergies seriously. Right. And you have to be very, very, as a parent, severe. And then you got a blank look on the waiter or waitress's face. You would be sued. Oh, now I'm woken up. So if you feel they're not paying attention, really do reiterate, because some people just go allergies and they don't take any notice of it. So
we bring, like, our daughter Lana, she has no meals in a restaurant. We prepare everything for her, down to silverware, everything. She has everything prepared, including the mat, because we all know that these are not really thoroughly clean sometimes. So for her specifically, because she has the nut allergy too. So does my other daughter, actually. She has asthma on top of it.
I do too.
So So I was born with severe asthma. So I used, back in the 80s, I was in the ER all the time because I didn't know what to do back then. It was we were given all sorts of stuff that was, now they, not now. I mean, it's been quite a few years, but when they came out with the inhaler, that was life changing for me, because before that I was homebound most of the time, as I'm sure you probably
yes. The inhaler came out when I was 14 and became a life changer, because literally I'd be blacking out. And unable to breathe, and just lucky that I came around. But every time you feel like you lose some brain cells, the lack of oxygen, and
might be from the vodka though. If you
no problem with that. So I've been on the Ventolin now for 53 years.
Wow.
And if I ever go medical, they say, I remember going in for surgery. And they put it in my hand and said, if you need this during surgery, use it. So I'm going to be out. How will I going to use it? It was so illogical. Really weird. But anyway, maybe they were just thinking it was a comfort, but I don't know. But it put me more in a panic, actually. But I mean, things like asthma, or where kids have problems. It's, environmentally, we have so many things out there nowadays, that are airborne, that are more toxic. We do have to be careful. Of course, a plant-based diet is really good for that type of thing, because it's generally less contaminated. But yes, we have to take it seriously. We have to have people around us take it seriously, because it's not fun. And the other thing is, the kids are going to get teased because other people just think you're being a wimp. And they need to be educated on how life-threatening it is, and when they are educated on that, they take it more seriously and have more respect. So the more education we can with people, I mean, there are some people who simply don't care. We'll always have those, but for most people, they just don't realize. And you can help them realize, then it's a different scenario altogether. And knowledge is power. It's not just power what to do in a case of a situation, but it's also understanding why certain parents are so on guard, or, are dealing with these things. And it's having back to that empathy. Okay, I understand, I can't comprehend everything you go through, but I understand something of what you're going through. And, I don't know what I can do for you, but I'm here if I can.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we could step up and be a little bit more supportive of each other.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the thing that makes it a little bit easier these days is that so many kids have these issues.
Yes.
That it's not like an anomaly anymore, you know? So, and I
which
think a
is
lot
also
of,
a question of, what's out there that's causing this.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah.
I'm glad you wrote this book. I'm glad that you got this redirection, however, horrific it was at the time. Is that I always believe that something happens in our lives to redirect us to where we're meant to go, doing what we're meant to be doing. And clearly this path chose you.
Yeah.
Right. And it gave you that example for you to realize how much it's needed.
Right.
And my God, is it needed?
Yeah.
So, this book is something that I hope very much, as you said, it's going to be in CD form or download form or something that people can have.
We'll have an audiobook, ebook, physical book, and then the actual master classes you can access, to watch the videos anytime you want.
Right. Yeah. And so the thing is, I don't care if you're grandma, grandpa, or just a friend that comes over and watches the kids. Have this information at your fingertips. Watch this information beforehand, because prior knowledge at least takes the panic out of things, and then you at least know where to go at that moment to get the help, and that that can save a life.
Right. Yeah,
and that's the most important thing.
Absolutely, and that's so important. It's really, the prevention is key. Yes, 100% of that. I mean, it really is. And then again, you're never going to know who's going to be around when a crisis befalls the family, right? So it's a lot of, like, historically, you want to make sure that no one parent is relied upon for this. Have the skills individually, every single person, who knows that is. And then depending on the age of the kids, like my other daughter's 14, she knows a lot of these skills, right? So because, we basically, one of the things that we wanted to get her involved in out here in California is lifeguarding. Yeah. So in lifeguarding, she learns all the CPR stuff. She learns how to swim. I mean, all kinds of stuff. So all these things are, it was in my head, it was something that would be good for her on so many different levels, but also it trickles down to her being able to take care of our kids, if there's a problem, as well. So it's get the family involved. You never know when you're going to be in a situation where you having this knowledge, you're there at the right time in the right place with the right knowledge. Right. And what a difference you can make, literally between life and death. Right. So having, why do a lot of things happen? Because people don't know what to do in that crisis. The more we know, even the basics, the more we know, it literally could be life-saving for a child, for anyone. Well, you also become a valuable member of your community. Yes. My brother, right when I was learning these things, my brother Eric called me, and he was in New York. He's like, "You're never going to believe what just happened." He's in a restaurant. It was a Greek restaurant that we used to go to all the time. And he said, this woman has her son in this high chair, that they gave to her at the restaurant. He starts choking. The mother gets up, goes up. She knows exactly what to do. She goes over, takes him out, clears the obstruction, puts him back down, and they just keep on eating dinner. Right. And so when I thought that through, I'm just like, well, so she's not only a valuable member to her family, right? But if that happened to somebody else in a restaurant, I think she'll do it. I think she'd do the right thing too. Right. But instead of being one of those bystanders, just stand around. Yeah. But the attitude of it too. Yeah. She didn't make a big thing out of it. So the kid didn't make a big thing out of it. So it wasn't something to be afraid of. Right. It's like, a child falls down and cries, and the parent, and it's like, well, you fell down. Let's get back up. You're right. Got an owie? Want a Band-Aid? Make light of it, because if we make drama out of it, we're instilling a fear and a drama in that child. Right. Right. Very important. Yeah. Yeah. We clearly have more to talk about. In a choking scenario, I'll just end with this, is just if Marcus, my son, was choking and I had gone like this towards him, he gets startled and he's going to take a reflexive, it's going to try to get, and the object's going to go further down. Yeah. Right. So like, again, we talk about staying calm. It's like, you just calmly approach them, take them out of the high chair or the cart, whatever it's happening, and then you start doing them in a calm way. But you're only going to rush and startle and panic when you're panicked.
Yes.
When you don't know what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, be calm.
Yeah.
Secondly, know what you're doing because you've done the research, you've read the book, you've watched the videos, taken the masterclass. Now you feel more self-assured within yourself of how to deal with a situation when it comes up.
That's right. It's very empowering.
And refresh it. It is.
Yes.
It is. Yes. And you know, we just don't know when. You know, if you're lucky, your kid's going to go through their entire life without ever needing that. But maybe somebody else did.
Yeah.
Right. And you're there for somebody else.
That's right.
Or maybe your kid, because you've instilled this in your kid, is there for someone else.
Right.
So you're primarily doing it for your family, but you never know what the ripple effect can be.
And this podcast, I mean, just us doing this podcast can be shared from one mother, one father, to grandparents, to another mother and father. And just that in and of itself can be a story someday. Well,
they talk about book club. I talk about podcast clubs.
Yeah.
We encourage people to listen, and then each one their own perspective. What have they learned from it? You know, what did they not know they do now know? Because in that camaraderie group, you have formed your own little community of support.
Yes.
So I highly recommend it.
And based on facts too, like we're talking in the just I'll end with this, is like, I want to be so clear about this because I've seen this with these groups. When we talk about clubs or groups, and we talked about this before we came on, just I want to stress this, is that make sure that the information that you're getting is based on what's actually true. Yeah. And not just because, again, the person you're getting that information from, and I saw this in a group I was telling you about, when there was a child safety concerns are coming up and they're actually giving each other incorrect advice. Right. Right. So that person might have watched that YouTube video that we were talking about from 7 years ago that was done by, Tim in Iowa, who just learned a new skill, right? And then just said, I'm gonna make a YouTube video. This is pretty cool. But he forgot 2 steps. Right. So it's really being careful about where you're getting your resources. Is it proper, valid, certified, resourceful source, right? That is the important thing, because that doesn't mean that through the years there aren't going to be different techniques or different this or different that, but the certification of what you're learning right now from these people is up to date, is current and tried and true. Right. And they do change. Yes. They do change. These it's amazing that when you look back historically on what's recommended now and what was recommended before, it'll blow your mind. You're like, you gotta be kidding me. It's like, no, there are big changes that have been made. And there will be in 5 years and 10 years. Absolutely. We're gonna be scratching our head in 5-10 years. Exactly. So you know what? When you get behind the wheel of a car, you don't just get behind the wheel of the car and know how to drive it. It is a weapon that we drive around every day. We had to learn how to drive it mechanically, then instinctually, and then paying attention when we're on that road, because our radar has to be out there all the time. But if we didn't know how to drive that car, right, we wouldn't know how to get around. So the same thing with this. It's having this knowledge that you may not use as often as a car. But, how often are you going to be in a situation of a near accident or an accident? But if you know what to do in the case of that accident, then you're empowered, right? It's about the empowerment. You can save your kid's life. You can save a friend's life. Their kids can save a life. The whole point is you're saving lives. Right. A life that didn't have to go because somebody knew what to do. That's right. And there's no better feeling than having that skill set. Yeah. And it's so powerful. It really gives you a level of confidence that really expands way beyond just the child safety thing. Yeah. You just feel like, because even if you become more situationally aware, then you're looking out for your fellow community. Then you're saying what's over here? What can I do to make this better? Hey, we don't have a designated water watcher at this party. You wouldn't even know that term if you didn't actually learn. Right. Yeah, so exactly. You're an asthmatic, you know what it's like to have an asthma attack. And sometimes you can just simply do it by taking the air in wrong. Right. And it's like, what it's like to choke. Oh, yes. And to gasp for way air. Too many times. It's very uncomfortable. There's nothing like it. No. There's really nothing like it. And, one of the things that when we hear statistics of like the million children, who not make it to the age of 5, It's like, as human beings, we're really not able to wrap our head around the pain that is actually caused around the world. So what I really encourage, it's an uncomfortable thing to do, but I really, to make it your own, as if you're a mom or a dad, is to really close your eyes and then just think about your own child.
Yeah.
You know, it's only when you really think about your own child, your own grandchild, and really visualize them, let's say choking on, you know, their breakfast, then you will get this rush of emotions, you know. So don't focus on the broader problem. Yes, be informed by it.
Yeah.
But as far as you're basically telling yourself, I need to do something about this now, like right now.
Right.
You know, like there's a quote that I love that says, every day is a day too late. Right. So, and a day is 24 hours. I would argue it'd be more like every minute is a minute too late, because your child could be having popcorn, which they shouldn't have, by the way, you know, but for a certain age, or a hot dog, and that's not cut up properly, you know, but even, you know, with Markus, what he actually choked on was pineapple. Now you might say, okay, well, did he have the hard part of the pineapple? No, I cut off the hard part.
Yeah.
So, but talk about nuance. It was what my CPR instructor told me. He's like, pineapple is a problem because of the consistency. It's fibrous.
Right.
So that's what it just kind of expands in your right. And then it just stops. Right. I mean, so really think that through. It's like, even in you know, we have a number of resources in the book also about, so you can actually watch videos of like the fire.
Yes.
Like when you say how fast it goes, typically like from the associations that you can follow, they'll say, well, be able to do a 2 minutes to get your family out. And I'm like, 2 minutes? Are you 2 minutes? Who's to say you have 2 minutes?
Right.
I mean, how many videos do I have personally watched that it's within 20 seconds? You know, whether it's like a Christmas tree, I mean, just around, you know, the holidays, how many Christmas tree fire tragedies are there? You know, because people don't typically water them properly. Those things go up like within, like I said, 15, 20 seconds. And then within less than a minute, the entire house.
And it's not just the fire, it's the smoke and it's everything else. And we know another thing to throw in there is climate change. You know, we had an entire town obliterated in minutes. Just a whole fireball went through, and one guy didn't get out with a shirt. You know, he literally just grabbed his dog and ran, and he didn't even have time to get a shirt because the fireball went right through, or flooding or anything else. The thing is, life is happening around us. We never know when it's going to happen to us. Right.
And then he did the right thing, right? He got out, he stayed out.
Yes.
People don't go back in, get out, stay out, then call 911, right? Right. I mean, don't do those in reverse, and don't ever go back. I know you people instinctively want to go back and get some, whatever it is, right? All that stuff can be replaced, right? For the most part, with the exception of the hamsters, right? That's one of those things it's tough. I mean, it's really tough.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you have to make that measurement for yourself.
Right.
But you
know, we watch all of these shows, folks, you know, the firefighter ones, the this ones and that ones, and they've always got tips in there. Don't go back in. Even they said, don't send the firefighters back in sometimes, you know, so there's a reason behind it. And I know you want to save something, but at the same time, sometimes you just can't. And that is it. But when you're empowered to do so, that person coming out of the smoke that needs the CPR and needs the help, then you know, actually you've got some skills to do something to make a difference in that person's life. Because let's face it, when there's a catastrophe, like, you know, something major happening, a firefighter or a paramedic or anything, they are just 2 or 3 people. They can't work on everyone. So if you've got some skills, you could step up and help them. And that difference between that paramedic getting from that person to that person is literally a life and death. And if you can just keep them going long enough. And
again, like, even if you are to your point, let's say, for instance, that it is taking them 10 minutes to get to the house, but you're the other person. With your what happens with CPR is that you can get pretty tired after a while, because it's an intense thing. And so now you have the ability to take over, you know, and then you guys can switch off. You know, you really want somebody to switch off with somebody who's at equal level of training or above, right? So, but even if you don't have any training, you could still be the one to go get stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So, these things, and even just put the phone on speaker, put
Yes.
it next to them so they can hear it properly.
Right.
You're the one who calls out the address or gets the,
Yes.
work with everybody, work with what
Everybody
you
has a
got.
role. Everybody
Yes.
has a role, right?
Yes.
So, and then
Yes.
it's just no, please don't stand there paralyzed. You're paralyzed
Right.
because you're afraid because you don't know what to do.
That's right.
And it's, if you don't know what to do, ask, right?
Yes.
What do you
Yeah.
need me to do?
Yes.
Call this, call that, do this, do that. And don't just do it.
That's
Put
right.
yourself in gear and just do it. And if
Yes.
you've got
Yes.
the skills, if you're being trained, then those skills will come out in you, right?
Yeah.
But especially if you refresh them.
Yes.
How do people get hold of the book? How do people join up for this masterclass? How do people get you?
Well, the main website is ourchildskeeper.com. And the book is emergencythebook.com. And what we're doing with the book, emergencythebook.com, is there's a lot of bonuses that are in there. So if you join the masterclass, there's bonuses in there. But if you want to just get the book, you can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. In the UK, we have people in the UK. So, and we also have it in ebook version. So the main website, again, at ourchildskeeper.com, is a place where you have access pretty much to everything. Mm-hmm. But specifically for the book, I would highly encourage going to emergencythebook.com. And then we have a ton of resources there too. It's not just us, right? We're basically saying you want to have trusted resources. Where should, if you want to get, for instance, like we have a link to where do you go to get your car seat properly installed? And when should you do it? Like you should actually do it 8 weeks before you give birth. You might say, well, why would we do? Well, what if the baby's premature?
Right.
We don't want to think about these things, but you also don't want to be in a situation where the baby comes a little bit early. And you're already in the hospital. Now you got to go do the research, find it, get it properly installed. So the local police stations, fire stations, a lot of them have these events where you can go in there, you can make sure it's installed properly, you know how to use it. And so these little tips are in there. There are links to these places where you can find that information out, and a number of other resources, of course.
Being a new parent is already overwhelming.
Yes.
My poor daughter was 48 hours in labor. She had complications afterwards. He was a very big baby and they were all exhausted. And, like sleep, what's that? He's 10 months old and they still haven't had a night,
Yes, yes.
And it's very hard to kind of function when you're tired. So the more you've done things in preparation, the more those things are there. And then, as you said, keep watching the videos and refresh, the more it stays in your mind. That fatigue or not, if a situation comes up, it's there, it's instilled. Or you know exactly where to go to get, to watch that video while it's happening, or somebody's what, now do this, now do that, because when you're tired, you're not thinking straight. But if the knowledge is already there or at the fingertips, now, you're empowered to do so. Right.
And that the time that you are up is actually a good time to watch, the video, so you can refresh in that time. You're going to be up anyway.
Yeah.
And you're doing it at the service of the child you're up for.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, it's like my son, Dylan, he didn't sleep through the night for 3 years. He just had this, I don't know what you call it. I still don't know, but he just, like the first 3 years, he just would not sleep through the night. And we were exhausted in addition to doing our jobs and everything else. So, yeah, I mean, that adds to it. Then you have panic, and then you're tired. I mean, talk about a perfect storm. So, maximize that time. And there are any number of tools that you can learn to, like for my daughter, Lana, because of her allergies, I was up during the night a lot with her because my wife, as a nurse, would get back super late. So I'd watch her during the night, but I learned a meditation, a deep breathing practice. Yes. And that's the way I was able to survive. Was really meditation was allowing me to survive during the night. So the little time I did get to sleep, when she woke up the next time, my brain was alert because it was oxygen and my whole body was oxygenated. Right. So there's research, there's so much information out there. And a lot of it, you have to, really make sure it's the correct information, but research, there's so much out there, Thank you for doing what you're doing. I look forward to having you back on what is happening. And I hope it's in every hospital as a package that people go home with. Yes. Because we're inundated when that baby is first born. Yes. Whether it's number 1, 2, 3, or 4, it doesn't matter. We're inundated, and every child is different, as you know. Yes. Yes. And so if we've got these skills and tools, they're in our backpack. They're at our fingertips. Oh, I just need to refresh. It's there. Yeah.
And then when an emergency comes up, it's there in your head. You know what to do.
Right.
It can literally be the difference between life and death.
That's
And that empowerment to know that you've got that knowledge
Yes.
is very, very important. So thank you
Yes.
for taking this path.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been fantastic.
Been
you so
wonderful.
much.
And have you back again with all the big news, most
Yes,
certainly.
yes, that sounds fantastic.
Folks, remember, we're not meant to know it all, but it doesn't mean that there isn't knowledge out there that we can learn from. Markus put this wonderful program together because he saw his child gasping, because he knows what it's like to have no air. And this is the direction that it's taken him in. And now that's a gift to you. So take this knowledge. It doesn't matter who you are. I don't care if you don't have any kids around you. And you never know when you can use this elsewhere, or you're around kids at a party or somewhere. You go and visit your boss and his kid gets into trouble and the boss doesn't know what to do. You don't know. Having this knowledge is something that's there within you that can save somebody. And you might even be the one on the phone sometime telling somebody how to do it if you can't actually be there. So just having the knowledge is good for everyone. So until next time, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. Please tune in to our selfdiscoverymedia.com/shows and you will see all the other genres that we have from you. Every week on Tuesday, we bring you new shows from illuminating people. If you know someone that should be interviewed, please contact us at info@selfdiscoverymedia.com. Now stay tuned for your next show.